There are many tales of the early days of Terraria, stories that tell of great battles and legendary heroes lost to the ravages of time. Most of these have no evidence that survived to the modern day though, making their occurrence questionable at best. The oversized slime known as the king of the gelatinous beasts, however, holds within it a physical memento of these ages long past, a warrior king who was ultimately forced to sacrifice himself in order to save his people. Gods had begun. Humanity had all players deep and challenging, different is less likely to get me horribly Long ago, in an age before the great old ones and elder gods had paid attention to the small outer rim world called Terraria, the slimes were a peaceful race. The humans of the world could easily kill them, but with their extreme reproductive rates, they could easily make up their losses. The humans saw the slimes similar to the animals that they farmed or hunted, like rabbits and ducks, there to be exploited. They would use them as mounts to travel across the world, and butcher them to obtain gel to make and fuel torches. But the slimes saw no wrong in this. It had been how their species had lived for centuries. That was until one fateful day. A new slime had been born. He was different. He was bigger, stronger, and wiser, and he hated the way the humans treated slimes. He began to voice his views, and soon many slimes began to follow his ideals, going on to raid cities and slime farms to free their brethren. Naturally, the humans hated this, especially one king, who ruled but only one piece of Terraria. Similarly to the slime's leader, he was a great orator, able to win over people with words alone. He was also a powerful shinobi warrior, and convinced not only his own people, but several other kingdoms to attempt to quash this slime rebellion. Not all desired to participate, however, and it should be noted what races and kingdoms stayed out of the upcoming battle. The lizards remained sealed in their temple. The witch doctors generally saw all creatures as their test subjects, but held no malice or love for any of them. The nature guardian dryads remained neutral for obvious reasons. The sky-dwelling harpies carried a general distaste for ground dwellers, and so stayed above the clouds. And finally the steampunkers, who found the idea of going to war over a simple blob of slime utterly idiotic no matter how you cut it. As the war began, it seemed to move quickly in the humans' favour, with many thousands of slimes slain in the first week, compared to the loss of barely 100 humans in the earliest charges. But then the King Slime pulled off potentially one of the greatest strategies in the history of warfare. It was known that slimes were capable of changing very easily, with scientists theorising that their unstable genetics caused the rapid evolution of all of Terraria's creatures. Because of this, there were still many partially evolved slimes out there, since only the primordial plain-coloured variants had been involved in the first attacks. It was now that the King Slime called upon these elemental slimes. Sand slimes from the driest of deserts, ice slimes from the barren, frosty wastelands of the north, lava slimes from the boiling hellscape at Terraria's core, winged slimes from the wide open skies, sea slimes that burst forth from the oceans, and the toxic sludge born of the waste sites of a lost civilization. These elemental slimes would be the ones who now turned the tide of battle, and after years of war, most of the human nations retreated. That was all except for the very first to declare war. The king refused to surrender, despite many of his subjects wanting to make peace, but even so his army managed to hold the slimes back at the city gates. But then the King Slime himself joined the fighting, tearing through the knights and restoring his health with each one he devoured. After this, the human army fell back to behind the walls, but it was now the King Slime used his second ability. He disassembled himself into pieces, crawling over the wall and reassembling on the other side. The people were forced to flee and take shelter in their homes as the King Slime proceeded to the castle. The human king would have no choice but to surrender, but in the peace negotiations, the King Slime offered the humans a lifeline. If all the slime farms and stables were disbanded, the captured slimes freed, and they were allowed to take one member of the royal family prisoner, then the King Slime would permit the hunting of wild and only wild slimes. The human king would reluctantly agree, and gave the order to disband all of the slime stables and farms. But in a final twist of fate, the slime king chose the king himself as his prisoner, trapping him within his core, knowing that his heightened shinobi discipline would allow him to survive, forever trapped within the Slime King. Once the fighting ceased, the slimes would return to their home biomes, and the Slime King to his caves, spending many years underground surviving the invasion of the god who caused the corruption, and the rule of Cthulhu. He would forget and lose many of his battle abilities. Although the war had ended, the slimes remained hostile to humans, attacking them on sight. Meanwhile, the human king, permanently trapped within the titanic slime, waited for the arrival of a warrior, one who could kill the King Slime, and finally end his suffering. Thank you for watching everyone, I hope you enjoyed the video. This episode was originally written by Lord Fawful and submitted as part of Rational Gamers' Your Lore initiative. Because of the quality of the submissions, I would love to see more of what you have. So if you've written some of your own Terraria lore and want to see it on the channel, then send it through to contactrationalgamers@gmail.com. Remember to subscribe for more of your lore, support the channel for as little as $1 a month on Patreon, and have a great day.